Welcome to the Growth Shift. I'm David Zilstra. Here's what I've learned after years in business. Every leader who's built something meaningful has a story, but the moment they had to shift, when failure forced innovation, when change became opportunity, when they chose growth over comfort. On this show, we dive into those pivotal moments, the setbacks that became breakthroughs, the strategic shifts that accelerated growth, and the frameworks that turn obstacles into opportunities. Because here's the truth. In a world where change is the only constant, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who've learned to shift strategically through it. So whether you're facing your own pivot point or just want to learn from someone who's been there, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by Valentix. At Valentix, we help coaches and consultants who are struggling with generating consistent, high-quality leads, automating their client onboarding processes, and scaling their operations without simply adding more hours or headcount. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because they're bogged down in manual tasks and feel like they're missing out on the power of modern technology. But with the right strategy and AI-powered solutions, they're able to streamline their workflows, attract better opportunities, and achieve sustainable growth. If that sounds like you or someone you know, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Dale Power, a seasoned entrepreneur and the founder of Share Your Courage. Dale has a rich background, including running a successful marketing business for 25 years and even a fascinating 6-year stint as a professional clown. Now, she's embarking on a deeply purposeful mission to help individuals reimagine retirement and other major life changes as the most brilliant chapters of their lives. Dale's journey is marked by profound personal experiences that have fueled her passion for impact and purpose. Dale, welcome to the Growth Shift.
Thank you so much, David.
Now, Dale, you've had a truly unique entrepreneurial journey, including running your marketing business for a quarter of a century and now launching Share Your Courage. Take us back to the early days of your marketing career. What initially drew you to that field, and what were some of the foundational lessons you learned about business?
I was starting from a pretty blank slate at that point. I had become a primary wage earner in my life at a late date, and I was starting from scratch. I mean, day one, no clients, I had background in marketing, but I didn't have any real experience running a business. So I was just making it up as I went. I went to every single networking event that I could possibly find, and that was pretty exhausting, but that really got me started. And I started a course on branding. I had a great office in the original farmhouse on this big property for a huge corporate center. And it was an old Quaker farmhouse that had a kitchen and a boardroom and a classroom, and that was all included in the rent, which was brilliant. And so I started a branding class, and that really got me started. I was in some of the typical networking organizations for a while. And what I found was marketing is expensive, and usually for solopreneurs, it's too expensive for what I was doing. So I moved quickly into larger small businesses that were making a minimum of $3 to 15 million, and were really wanting to grow. And that was a good identification.
So it sounds like you really went through the trenches. I mean, you weren't starting from zero. You were starting from experience, right? You had experience in marketing, but not as owning a business, right? Yeah, absolutely. So starting from the ground up as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, sounds like, you went through the typical journey, going to networking events, learning as you were going, educating yourself along the way. That turned into a 25-year business. I mean,
yeah, it was a great run.
With the 25-year business, you obviously did well for yourself. You achieved measurable success. What brought an end to the marketing career for you?
Well, my youngest son got sick, and he was in the hospital for a year, and he was 27 miles away, and he was in the city of Philadelphia in a hospital. And it's just very, it's just a tough road to be trying to get down to see somebody in the hospital and run a business that far away. It was pretty challenging. And then I had this amazing experience 2 years later where early one morning I went down to this great art exhibit on a weekend, and I was walking through the door and my phone rang, and it was on a Sunday morning, and nobody in my family calls me on Sunday mornings anyway, and they're all chopping Z's. And it was an old friend from college, from Villanova, that had been a good friend, and we'd lost touch. And he said, I'm calling to say thank you. And I said, what are you thanking me for? And he said, you saved my life, and I wanted to make sure I said thank you. I went, wow, can you remind me what I did? And he said, you knew I wanted to go to medical school, and you knew I was slacking badly. And he said, you were furious with me. And he said, you sat me down and told me all the potential you saw for me. And he said, in that moment, everything changed, and I started to work. And he said, I went to school in Mexico, came back to Chicago, passed my boards the first time, and 3 years in, the university invited me to teach. Then Sloan Kettering gave me a brilliant fellowship, and 4 years later, Harvard called. And he said, I'm at the top of my career in Boston, and it only happened because of that conversation. I went, wow.
Incredible. Yeah.
Thank you for telling me. And my next thought was, anybody can do this any day of their lives.
Yeah.
We have.
Well, Dale, I gotta jump in here because I see where you're going with this, but I got to learn a little bit more. I mean, you are clearly a very powerful and capable woman, right? You moved out of a career into starting a business, and you clearly have influence on people as well. You know, you have perspective that you can bring to your friends and tell them, you know, as a human and as a friend, that you can see them doing more. Usually that's not something that's innate, that's something that's learned. I mean, is this something that, you learned in yourself and then you were able to recognize it?
I have no idea where it came from. The only thing I will say is my mother was afraid of everything, and I've fought that every single day of my life. So wow. I don't know if I really don't know, but I do. There is an entrepreneurial streak in my family. And so when my dad retired, he went into a tailspin, and he got out of it because he had a rip in the back seat of his Toyota station wagon that was a vinyl seat, and he couldn't find anything to mend it right. And he researched it, and he found this patch that they use on the Alaska pipeline, and he started to market that. And that was like, he got sick after that, unfortunately, but he was ready to take it to market. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, I mean, it must have been very inspiring seeing that, and then also
it was. Yeah.
Being able to think back on that maybe in times of challenge initially with the marketing agency. So
definitely.
So you sat down with a friend, you had a conversation, you told him that, he should be doing more, he could be doing more, and a number of years later, he called you back and said, my life has changed.
A long time later. I mean, it's like a long time later. A long time later, yes. Yeah, we lost touch. It's so funny. I'm thinking about him, and then there he was. Wow.
Yeah, it sounds like that really maybe sparked something or, ignited something in you at that point. I mean, what changed for you once you saw how your friend's life had changed just from a few words that you had offered?
I had noticed before I started my marketing work, I had started the outreach division of a private school for kids with learning differences, which was a marketing project. And one of the things that when you're around kids that are smart, but they've been in situations where people don't think they're smart, you realize there's a great need for encouragement and courage. And I saw it every single day of my life, and it really impacted me as well. And so when that phone call came, it just made me say, I need to do something in the area of courage and encouragement. And I started with encouragement, because I do believe that might be one of our most powerful tools if we learn how to use it right. But in America, we think encouragement is a pat on the back. And it's like, you can do this. And it's a lot more than that, and it's a lot deeper than that. But I realized that about a year and a half in, and that's when I changed the name to Share Your Courage. Because courage is definitely a much stronger word, and encouragement can bounce out of that easily anyway.
What were the initial days like with Share Your Courage? I mean, you went from having a marketing company to now starting a new one, going back into that startup phase. What were some of the initial challenges that you were facing?
I forgot how hard it was. I finished with my last big marketing client, and that was right at the end of COVID. And the marketing people pretty much took it on the chin in COVID anyway. I was lucky to keep my big clients. And I finished with my last client, and I just realized it didn't have any meaning for me anymore. So I must be an eternal optimist. I thought, I'll just do this. And it was really calling me, obviously. But how did I start? tried to remember all the things I did that worked. And I started, interestingly, kind of doing the same kind of networking at a little bit higher level and looking for private events, which are much better than, these days you go to a lot of the events have just BD, business development people in it. If you can find the private events, it's a lot better. But then I realized that that wasn't really working, and I don't know whether it's, things have changed a lot in the business world. But so I got invited to be in this big LinkedIn group that like or comment on one post a week, which is a pretty low bar. And it raises your visibility because there were 67 people in it, and even if a tenth of them comment, you're getting their network. So that was interesting, and that worked for a while. But then I started a networking event of my own at a local bar on a Tuesday at 4:00 because everybody can be home by 6, which is awesome. And I just invited people that were in my target market for referral as a referral advisor. And wow! And then I hooked them into a new LinkedIn group, and that has been a multiplier. Both of them multiply each other. And so that I'm about to start the next group of events, and I'm probably going to keep it at about 25 or 30 people, not many more than that. And it's nice on Tuesdays. It isn't too busy, and it's a little quieter so you can hear yourself talk.
Yeah, always important, especially at a bar.
Yeah, and it just gets frustrating to be in noisy places. And then they will be invited to be on the invitation list for LinkedIn, and they will have the same request. Please like or comment one post a week.
Okay.
And we'll
So it
see
sounds
how
like you're just, leveraging the power of network and networking
Yeah.
to build that initial foundation. A lot of people start at that same place, right? Warm relationships, current existing connections within your network, and, finding business opportunities there. So if that's where you started, where are you today with Share Your Power, Dale? What does it look like? Who are you really helping, and how do you help them?
Well, pivoted. I thought I was going to offer it to the business world, which I think needs it badly, but there was no listening for it. And after a year, I had to have a long chat with myself and say, hello, you got to notice that this isn't particularly working. And, I think it's important to notice the stumbles in a good way and say, okay, what else? And so I had been aware of a number of people close to me that were, I have friends of all ages. All of the people that worked for me they could be my daughters. Most of them were girls. And, they were in their late 30s and early 40s. But I have friends of all ages, which is the fun part of this world. And some of these people were retiring, and they had done the financial stuff. They'd done the estate planning. They had no plan for what they were going to do because they thought they'd play golf, see grandchildren, and travel. And they found a year out that they had no network left. Their friends had shifted a little bit, and their identities were in desperate need of repair. And so I have started something called Reimagining Retirement, which is, it's going to be offered as a group or a 6-week one-on-one iteration, and I don't think it'll take much more than that, but I think there's a great need for it. And to that end, I've got my first workshop coming up Friday, and it's pretty well subscribed.
Amazing. This is an interesting topic, right? Because you look at people who have worked their whole lives and, getting to a retirement age, some, arrive there sooner, let's say, because of their financial acumen.
Right.
You get there and you're working 8 or 10 hours a day often, and then all of a sudden nothing, right? One of the most significant parts of your life is just entirely removed. Yeah. And you think you're going to go play golf or sit on the beach? I mean, that's got to get boring very fast. What would you say is the biggest problem that people face at that point? Is it just, a lack of purpose? Is it a lack of activity? I mean, what really needs to happen to get people back to a point where they feel they have purpose then?
Well, they need to identify, I think it's important to look at your strengths, but then also take a really good hard look at how your strengths have maybe shifted. Because what you were using as your strengths in the work world, in the 9 to 5 or the 9 to 8 or 10 world, whatever you're working in, might not be quite the same thing as what you're in now. And an example, I guess a good example of this is, I have a friend he was at the top of one of the big corporations in Philadelphia. He is really good at teaching people, and he's really good he's consulting with manufacturing maybe twice a month down in South Carolina. and the rest of the time he's traveling. But it's just enough to keep his brain just really the wheels cranking, and he's working with big companies. He's doing some interesting work. There's another
it seems like
fellow who is
contribution is
huge
probably
and
one of the most important things for a feeling of purpose.
very important. There's a man who is a divisional head of one of the very top independent schools here, who is working in an inner city middle school teaching kids how to do woodworking. And he's surrounded by 6 or 8 kids, and they're all as happy as, just happy kids and guy.
That's incredible. So you're obviously, now feeling perhaps a greater need than you did when you had a marketing firm, right? People without purpose, maybe with lost direction, people needing help, right? Needing to perhaps find themselves again.
Yes.
It can be pretty challenging in this world, though. There's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of superficial things that people might pursue even in retirement, for looking for some sort of fulfillment, right?
Sure.
What do you think are the biggest challenges you are up against now as a business owner to help connect with the people who could really use you?
It's certainly not for everybody, because it's not for the ones that want to do the really frivolous stuff. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's an okay choice.
Sure, yeah.
I'm really looking for the people that want to define their purpose, redefine their purpose, and really want to get their hands dirty with, doing something that is really meaningful for them. And it doesn't have to be 24/7, or, it can be whatever way they want to create it. But I'm working with somebody right now who took a nonprofit just into the millions over a very short amount of time, like 6 years, I think. And he got out, he retired and was out for 2 months and called me and said, I can't stand this. I got to do something. And so he's going to be coaching emerging leaders, because that's what he loves to do. And he sees a huge need in the nonprofit community to do that. So
Dil, Share Your Courage. What's your vision for Share Your Courage? Where do you really want to take things? Because there's obviously, this could have an impact on a global scale, right? But is this more of a passion project and it's just something close to home, or is this something that you really want to push forwards?
Well, you know what? I think I could answer that a number of ways. Depends, I guess, is the answer. There's an equivocal answer for you. See how it goes this year. I think the fact that I've got almost a completely subscribed introduction is a good sign. If it continues that way, I guess what I see is being able to put this into some kind of licensing and grow it and sell it.
So you're thinking of having the business acquired at some point, or be out selling it off as well. From the point of startup, you have experience in business and entrepreneurship. That can be quite a challenge. What do you think are some of the most significant challenges you're up against to scale a company like this in today's world and get it to that point of acquisition?
Yeah, time and probably money. I'm not going to go into debt to do it, probably. So we'll see what happens, see who comes along the pike, who gets interested in it. But, I'm just really interested right now in just creating immense value and then seeing where that goes. So not in a huge hurry.
Yeah. Well, time and money, those are probably the only two real things that exist at the end of the day anyways.
Right.
So if we're looking at that, I'm kind of curious, with the time that you're up against, you have a time frame, you're kind of testing things right now to validate what it is you want to do, if it makes you happy, and if it really provides a need that people are looking for, or what is it that you mean by time?
No, it just takes a lot of time to do these things. Now, the thing is, once a speaking topic is put together, and they say you have to give it 100 times before it's really good, but I don't know if it has to be 100 times before it's really good. But once you have a speaking topic together to take on the road, then that's done. You practice it, but that's done. So the time that it takes to create things is that time. What's been really helpful as it pertains to what you talk about, David, is I am thrilled with AI, because, man, I use it for outlines, and it's like having a thinking partner. It's wonderful.
So you're battling your biggest problem of time with technology. We're starting to use AI to shrink the time frame necessary to help you scale to the point.
Yes. I think it's going to be very helpful in advising me how to scale. Now I need to check in with some people I know who know how to do that too. I have a few friends that have done that with a few different businesses. just getting those ideas rolling and just being able to learn about it is so important because it's not something you can walk down the street. I mean, it's not in the local newsstand magazine, right?
Dale, I mean, you've seen a significant amount of change in the business world, right? From having a
Yeah.
marketing agency near the turn of the century, right, to now starting a new business again with AI being readily available to you. If we were to look at your journey through marketing
Oh
and
my
compare
God.
the early days of that to the early days of your new venture now, what would you say are the most significant differences and advantages that you have that you couldn't even have dreamed of having
Yeah.
in 2001 maybe?
Well, I can tell you, when I was in that school, it was in the mid 90s, and I had written a book. That probably would have been a lot easier. But the next thing I did, I didn't want to write a book the second year I was there. So the next thing I did was I created a speaker program. I had one parent volunteer. We had FileMaker. That was it. We had nothing else. We had floppy disks, and we were barely on computers, and no training, of course, at all. So in a private school, you get to do everything, including learning it. But I got 900 people to my first event, and that was pretty significant for them. So that would have been very big help. Being able to take the lists and have a email platform, and none of that existed until the early 2000s. Yeah, there's been a lot of change. Digitally, there's been a huge amount of change, as you know.
If you look at the position that you're in today, now leveraging AI and technology in a new startup, what would you say are the most significant advantages that you have with the technology available at your hands? I mean, if you're running a marketing agency, you had a team, there was people behind it, there was a lot that had to happen, but now as a solopreneur again, do you feel like your output capability could even match that of an entire team, but on your own?
I think as far as, no, I don't think so. I think that, well, for one thing, I don't think AI is anywhere near the design capability that I would have looked for yet. I think it will be, probably, but to me it all still looks pretty artificial. And I know they say they can make it look, I don't know, I'm not sure about that yet. So, I mean, I worked with very, very high-end businesses, and they were looking at the top 1% of people with that kind of income. And it had to be beautiful and evocative. And I had a graphic designer who would only text. She wouldn't, speaking of divides, she would only text. She wouldn't get on the phone, but she was a terrific artist. She captured that sensibility so well. I don't know if I could replace her with AI yet. Maybe down the road. Social media, I think, would be able to be done, but I still think it's still in its infancy a little bit there. I think the design
Sounds like
stuff
there's
is
still a necessity in your eyes of human
still not
intelligence and
quite there.
artificial intelligence to really match the output of a true
Yeah.
professional or expert in any field.
Right. And I also think the writing, it's a great place to start, but I don't think for the most part you want to always, I never use just what is given to me. I usually shift it around and buff it up a little bit.
Yeah, it can be a really tricky thing, knowing how to prompt it, what frameworks to
Yes.
use, and how to guide an AI to train it to your voice and everything beyond, right?
I haven't learned how to train it to my voice yet, so that's next, I guess. But
Oh,
yeah.
it's coming fast. I'm sure it is. What do you think is the most exciting part of new technology, such as AI, in your eyes?
Well, I think that the ability to just the productivity, and I think we have to be very careful for the younger kids with it, because I don't want to see it replace their ability to think, because I think it could. And I feel so lucky because I started out my life as just an insatiable reader, and I still am, and nobody's reading anymore. So I think the great things about AI are all around productivity, and I love the idea of having a thinking partner that I don't have to wonder if I can call them at 4 o'clock in the morning when I sometimes wake up.
Yeah, absolutely. Dale, thank you so much for sharing your story and your vision
Thank you,
on the
Dave.
growth shift today. Do you have any words of parting advice for up and coming entrepreneurs or people who are currently going through that battle of wanting to scale their business? Any words of advice to help them continue on in the face of uncertainty or challenge?
I think it takes courage every day to do that, to take the next step. And that's what you have to do as an entrepreneur, is you've got to just make up your mind you have to take that next step. But tiny sparks make big ripples. And, it's a great journey. I mean, I'd never traded in a million years.
Fantastic. And for any of our audience who might like to reach out to connect with you, maybe to work with you, or just learn more about what you're doing, what would be the best way for them to find you?
Probably my website is shareyourcourage.com. My contact information is on there.
Fantastic. Thanks again for joining the Growth Shift.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
And that's a wrap on another episode of The Growth Shift. If this conversation sparked something for you, whether it's a new perspective on failure, a strategy you want to try, or just the reminder that every setback can become a setup for something bigger, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the leaders who thrive aren't the ones who avoid change. They're the ones who shift strategically through it. If you're ready to build the systems that help you grow without the chaos, head over to Valentix.io. We help businesses like yours scale smarter, not harder. I'm David Zylstra, and I'll see you in the next shift.